It is 7 o'clock. I am calling this Germantown Board of Education meeting to order. Please stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Official meeting notification, Mr. Stouslin.
Yes, public notice of this meeting has been given by communication from the superintendent's office to the public, to those news media who have requested such notices, and to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Northwest Now, Express News, and West Bend Daily News. Public notice has also been posted in schools throughout the district and on the gsdwi.org website, as well as cable access channel 96.
Roll call.
Medved.
Here.
Barney.
Here.
Reineman here. Soderberg, no excused. Loth.
Here.
Borden, excused, absent. Pollock.
Here. Item 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to citizen comments, we do have quite a few people signed up tonight. We're going to keep it to the 3-minute time limit and hopefully get everybody in. If your comments mirror or reflect what someone else is saying, if you could just say that you agree with so-and-so's comments, that would be appreciated so we can kind of move things along as much as we can. We're looking at least an hour and a half if everybody talks tonight for the full 3 minutes. So we'd appreciate any condensing of your speech would be great. Thank you much. I will call the first person and the person on deck, and then each time I will re-announce the name and also call the person that will be on deck so you can get ready. Move up towards the front. First up, we have Monica Curtis, and on deck is Kevin Curtis.
Hello, my name is Monica Curtis. I live in Germantown, and my husband and I have 2 kids, ages 6 and 4, in the Germantown School District. I'm reading a statement on behalf of someone who works in healthcare and is too scared to be here due to the harassment they've received from anti-maskers who are in the auditorium tonight. Dear Germantown School Board, I'm not here tonight because of the backlash and bullying that I will receive from the community I call home. I am not alone. Many others I know feel the same way and are not comfortable speaking publicly for the same reason. This, unfortunately, is what it has come to, and it is so sad. I doubt that any sentences I string together will change your mind. It is clear that this is 100% a political reason for you, and this angry mob of anti-maskers are only helping to fuel your thoughts. It's a concerning precedent you are setting. I'm begging you to separate your political feelings and strictly see the rise in COVID cases among children and follow the guidelines. 6,000 kids are quarantined in only the first 2 weeks of school in Florida. Don't let that be us. What is so unreasonable about trying something, anything, to mitigate this virus? Everyone survived wearing a mask last year, and we kept the numbers down. Wearing a mask didn't kill any of our kids, but not wearing a mask might. The CDC and health experts clearly state masks for both vaccinated and unvaccinated people right now. It's not a hard concept to grasp. We are still in a pandemic. Please, I am begging, listen to the directions of people who have spent their lives studying viruses and not your local politician. I'm proposing to rethink masks for all kids, kindergarten through 5th grade, at a bare minimum, since they're the ones who cannot receive the vaccine right now. Or another idea would be having masked and unmasked classrooms at the elementary, and the parent can choose which classroom for the year. The masks optional is a weak concept because masks are only effective when the majority of people wear them to protect their spit from going into your body. Follow the experiences of other states, other districts around the state, and the science of doctors. Or is science only real when you or someone you love has cancer, a life-threatening illness, or COVID, and you want science and modern medicine to save them? Then I'm sure you believe in it. Or maybe are you just concerned about your reelection campaign over keeping our kids healthy and safe? If any of these kids end up in the ICU or die, the blood is on your hand for failing to do anything. Sincerely, a concerned parent. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kevin Curtis and then Sandy Pye.
Hello, my name is Kevin Curtis. As you've heard from my wife, I have 2 children in the Germantown School District, ages 6 and 4. They are going to County Line and to Rockfield Elementary. Last time I came here, it was only 1 week into many school districts' time, and had already multiple cases happened. In the 2 weeks since I had spoken, many more things have happened. In Georgia, 4 districts have been forced to shut down and go completely virtual. Again, also, 4 districts in Texas have been forced to shut down entirely. In Lamar County, Mississippi, 1 week back, 2 high schools were forced to go completely virtual. In Iowa, an outbreak of COVID in the staff caused the school opening to go back a week. In Fauquier County, Washington, with only 15% of the kids opting out of masks, there was still an outbreak at the school, which caused the school board to have an emergency meeting to require masks again for the school. And for my favorite example here, Washington County, Tennessee, a county with the same name as ours, the same population as ours, and last time, with only 1 week, they had 41 cases in the students. They've had to call an emergency meeting of the school board meeting in order to get masks back because of how many cases were happening there. Already, right now, we know of all the other areas, other places nearby that are doing masks. Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Shorewood, Whitefish Bay, Fox Point, Greendale, Oshkosh. What makes us any different from them? What makes us better at fighting COVID than they are? I don't know what it is, but the masks are the #1 thing that will help us for this time. We have an opportunity here. We are seeing the future of what could happen at our school, at other schools, if we don't do masks. I pray that we change this possible future and put masks back into the school, at least for K-8, for all the students who cannot get the vaccine yet. Thank you.
Sandy Pye, and then next is Kristen Barr.
My name is Sandy P.A., and I live in Germantown, Wisconsin. My father was an elected official for 34 years, beginning when I was in 3rd grade. For his entire career, my family was civic-minded towards our community. They were lessons that have stayed with me all of my life. When it came to his constituents, political differences were set aside for the greater good. Experts were consulted, and my dad based his decisions on their recommendations. Many times their recommendations went against his personal beliefs, but he was elected to be a public servant, not a representative of his personal agenda. I was always and still am very proud of how he set his personal politics aside and represented always in the best interest of all involved. COVID-19 is not a political issue. It is a public health issue, just as polio and smallpox, along with other viruses, once were. We were vaccinated for these viruses before being allowed to attend school. The Delta variant of COVID-19 is a communicable viral disease, just as polio and smallpox once were. We are asking that some precautions and mediation plans be in place for the safety of the school children and their families, as well as those they come into community contact with. The children need to be in person in school. They sacrificed so much last year. There are some children with medical conditions that put them at high risk that will be expected to attend. Those under 12 are not yet able to be vaccinated. They are especially at risk in the indoor classroom. It seems only reasonable to follow the recommendations of the CDC, American Academy of Pediatricians, and other health scientists to at least begin the year with a mask mandate in place. With the Delta variation showing how it is more contagious and infecting younger children in greater numbers, it is not only a reasonable mitigation request, but the most logical in allowing the school children to safely return to and hopefully remain in classrooms for the school year. Last spring, when the decision was made to eliminate the mask mandate, our numbers were decreasing and the Delta variant had not yet presented itself in our community. I ask all of you to please reassess our present situation and act appropriately in reinstating a mask mandate to keep our children, teachers, staff, families, and communities safe. My dad, as an elected official, always took the advice of experts and voted in the best interest of the community he represented. I beg you to do the same. We need to be proactive to keep the schools as safe as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Barr, and on deck is Adam Barr.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dr. Kristen Barr, and I have children at County Line School. I have a PhD in microbiology, genetics, and immunology. I am not an expert like Fauci or the virologists working directly with the virus causing COVID-19, nor do I claim to be. However, my education and work experience has provided me with the expertise to decipher between misinformation and scientific fact. The virus that causes COVID-19 has mutated. It is not the virus we were dealing with a year ago. The Delta variant is twice as contagious as previous variants. Early data suggests that children get sicker with the Delta variant. Pediatric hospitalizations for COVID-19 have reached an all-time high in many regions, especially those where schools have made masks optional. With the original strain of COVID-19, people over 60 seem to be our most vulnerable. Now, children have become our most vulnerable group to COVID Delta variant due to their inability to be vaccinated. So, how do we protect those most vulnerable right now? Well, I can tell you from the scientific data, one thing has worked: masks. The rate of one thing that has demonstrated, and it's been time and time again, research on the variant as well has shown this. Before vaccines were available, masking mandates in schools worked quite well. Data shows that during the 2020-21 school year, where school mask mandates were in place, viral transmission was extremely limited. Why? Once again, because masks work. Schools without mask mandates subject children not only to a higher risk of viral transmission, but also to the experience of seesawing between virtual and in-person classes as outbreaks lead to school closures, followed by reopenings. Germantown is proposing a weak mask policy and turning them into vague recommendations. This will be taking away a safety measure that we know worked. This is a known recipe to definitively go back to an all-virtual learning, back and forth, and that is detrimental to children's mental health. Like I said last time, you don't call a plumber to fix an electrical problem. It's the same here. I don't rely on you shouldn't be relying on people with no scientific or medical background to have a say to fix a health issue. You rely on medical and scientific experts such as the CDC, NIH, AAP, WHO, AMA, and so many more. And all the medical and scientific experts agree that masks should be worn by all individuals, regardless of vaccination status, in schools. I urge the school board to listen to these experts and make the scientifically supported decision to require masks in the schools to begin the school year. And I think it would be perfectly acceptable to reassess the mask requirement of people of all age, or to reassess this after everyone is able to be immunized against COVID-19, which would essentially be 2 months after the vaccine becomes readily available to children under 12. Please, this should not be a debate. The health and safety of students should be a priority, and experts clearly explain to keep kids safe when returning to school is to require masks. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Barr, and on deck we have Jean Mary.
I don't know if I can follow that up, and I'm not just trying to get points with my wife there, but my name is Adam Barr. I grew up in Germantown. I went to school in Germantown. I love Germantown so much that I bought a house in Germantown. I'm now raising my family in Germantown. Furthermore, my mom dedicated her career as a teacher in Germantown. Peggy Barr, you probably know of her. But the reason why I'm up here today is my ask is that the Germantown School Board state that masks be required for children 12 and under until such time that the COVID vaccine is available to that age group. At that point, those who choose to protect their children via immunization can do so. I've heard multiple people argue and compare statistics from COVID-19 to the respiratory flu. To me, as a parent, that is irrelevant. What is relevant is what options, as parents or guardians, we have when it comes to protecting our children, particularly from the second they set foot on the school bus until the second they step off the school bus, the point at where the duty of care transfers between parent and the county. The ultimate protection is the vaccine, as it is with the respiratory flu, but with the respiratory flu, we have enough foresight to be able to actually administer those to the students ahead of time. In this case, we do not yet have that ability. My wife and I, and many like us, wear a mask not to protect ourselves or as some political statement. We wear a mask to protect those around us who don't currently have that option. As County Executive Josh Schulman once famously said, wear a mask out of love for your neighbor. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Jean Mary, and on deck is Carol Mary.
Masks optional is the only fair and appropriate choice for everyone, but particularly for our students, because it is the only option that is science-based for both sides. On the mask mandate side, we have the science that states that a person at risk will derive some protection from wearing a mask that is N95 or better, and which is replaced with a fresh mask each day. On the mask optional side, you have a variety of factors that mask proponents do not consider. There are people like me who have been told that medically we should never wear a mask. My oxygen level drops dramatically and quickly. There are several studies also that prove that masks cause too much CO2 to be inhaled, which can cause drowsiness, confusion, and slow reaction times. Those studies also show that due to the high respiration rates in younger children, masks cause them to inhale 6 to 12 times more the safe level of CO2, and that long-term, this could cause some brain damage for those in formative years. Additionally, there are numerous studies stating that masks impair social, psychological, and emotional development in children, and this is compounded for children with special needs. On top of that, we can all attest to the inability to hear and understand well, in many cases, when people are speaking through a mask. We need to consider that very negative ramification on teaching, where hearing and understanding are imperative. Here's the conundrum. The parents who feel their children need the protection of a mask want to impose a mask mandate on everyone, even those for whom a mask is known to be detrimental. Applying that same standards means that parents on the opposite side of the spectrum have the right to demand that no one wear a mask in school because of the physical, social, emotional, and communication issues I have cited. And yet those parents are only asking that masks be optional. Policies should never be put in place by politics or by those who speak the loudest, complain the most, or whatever. In this case, the policy should be based on science. Yes, all the science for everyone. Clearly, the only fair, reasonable, and science-based choice for everyone is masks optional. Thank you.
Okay. Carol Mary, and then on deck we have Teresa Snyder.
My name is Carol Mary, and I'm a Germantown resident, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you this evening. With regards to SEL in our school, it is amazing these days to hear the teacher unions complaining that parents want their children in school because they view the teachers as free child care. What hypocrisy. It is the school systems that are usurping parents' rights to be the source and arbiters of their children's social and emotional development. Teachers' responsibility in this regard is to report any potential abusive, emotional, or disciplinary issues to the parents and/or the appropriate authorities or school social workers, the people who have the right to intercede and the people who are trained to do so. The only thing teachers should be responsible in their classrooms is education on the subject matter and maintaining an environment in which learning can take place. Anything beyond that is the parent's domain, or should be reported to the appropriately trained professionals. The view children have of themselves in society and in relationship to others must continue to be the role of the parents to be taught in the family structure, which is apparently what the school system is attempting to destroy by usurping parental rights and freedoms. CRT, DEI, equity, and SAL are not good ideas in our classrooms. Common sense should tell us that, and history bears that out, which is perhaps why the schools do not teach accurate history anymore. But we have also come to understand the evil of all of it from our Bulgarian daughter-in-law, who grew up and lived under Soviet communism. She recently became a U.S. citizen. She now struggles to protect their children from the growing far-left evils in this country, the same ones to which she was subjected to most of her life and which she understands all too well. I am compelled to echo what she expresses so often. What are you people thinking? Have you lost your minds? Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Snyder, and then on deck we have John P.A.
I would like to speak on policy 5310. From what I'm understanding, you're saying that you're not going to get rid of the policy because of the funding that would be pulled from us. Look around this room. How about the funding from all the families that are in the process of contemplating or actually have pulled their kids from this district? Okay? There's a lot of them here tonight, actually. All right? We are not going to let invasive physical freedom that you have given free rein to our state government handle. It's not going to happen. This board is an extension of the state political leadership. You've said that, it's a fact, all right? So a few questions for you to think about before your vote tonight. Where is this funding coming from, and why do we so desperately need to keep it? Where does it say specifically that we have to have this policy in place? What other policies have this little carrot dangling from them that we don't know about yet? Okay? Menominee Falls, Sussex, and West Bend do not have this canned purchase policy. Why not? What do they know that we don't? Does keeping this policy and saying that you, the board, won't direct staff to enforce it absolve you from all of moral and civil responsibilities and liabilities? What if the state mandates in-school testing or vaccinations? Do your hands go up as you say, well, we didn't tell them to do it, the state did? You are an extension of that, okay? Every child deserves a free education. It's in that pesky little document that keeps coming up, you know, the Constitution, the 14th Amendment specifically. Education, not medical examinations, not insertion, injections, or incisions, not politics, education. Reading, writing, math, and most importantly right now, history. History needs to be taught correctly, accurately. We are here to stand up to tell you that we will not allow for mandated testing or injections for anyone, the students or the teachers, okay? There will be no invasive physical examinations done on our children. We will not comply, our children will not comply, and that you can take to the bank with your federal funding dollars. Thank you.
John P.A., and then we have Alex Hardin.
Good evening. My name is John P.A. I don't have any children in the school, but I am concerned about the community, and I live in Germantown. To give you an idea, I'm a little different. As far as I know, ER rooms, ICUs, and hospitals do not only treat COVID patients, and thank God, I never had COVID, but last October, I went to Community Memorial Hospital thinking I had appendicitis. But during the CT scan, I ruptured my abdominal aortic aneurysm. I was given 9 units of blood and rushed to Frederick, where the vascular team was waiting. Another 3 units of blood, 2 large stents, and they gutted me like a deer to remove 12 units of blood from my abdominal cavity. Then to ICU, placed on a ventilator, and my stomach left open to ensure no other bleeding. After the surgery, the doctor told my wife the surgery went well, but I give him 50-50 shot he will live, 40% shot he will not have organ damage or be paralyzed or have my black toes and feet amputated. Luckily, none of that happened, and I'm here. But she was told to go home since I was just given a COVID test and the results would not be in until the next morning. Can you imagine that? Tell your spouse, go home, and I don't know if your spouse will be alive the next day. What hell she went through. The next week, COVID started to surge in Milwaukee, and I was told to get out as soon as possible since the ER room was full and they closed another floor to COVID. Thank God I ruptured the week earlier, or they may not have had a ventilator or room in the ER or the ICU, and I could have bled out in the car awaiting treatment. And that's what happens in some of these other states. So when you say masks are a choice, my medical emergency was not a choice. If it happened to me now and I was in the South, I doubt I would be here. Since people have medical emergencies like mine, strokes, heart attack, car accidents, and since it is proven that masks do help prevent the spread of COVID, that may require the use of ER room ventilators and hospital beds. Why would you not help stop or reduce the unnecessary use of these important resources just by wearing a mask? Look at me and tell me my life doesn't matter because, hey, I'm sorry, we're filled. Can't treat you. Thank you. And by the way, here's what you look like on a ventilator.
Good evening, Alex Harden from Colgate.
Hang on one second, Alex. Alex Harden, on deck, we have Jenny Price. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alex Harden, thank you. Alex Harden from Colgate. So you've already heard, and you're going to hear a number of additional so-called arguments tonight in support of requiring kids to wear masks. And much like back in April and May, every one of these arguments is completely devoid of facts, and they all defer to very powerful experts rather than actual boots-on-the-ground data. And the primary expert being appealed to tonight has been and will continue to be the completely politically neutral CDC. So speaking of the CDC, here's some interesting nuggets. Everyone knows that obesity is a problem in America, leading to serious life-threatening diseases. Therefore, the adherents to the Church of Disease Control must know that they recommend kids engage in at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise every single day. Now, given that that is a CDC recommendation, why doesn't the board mandate it for kids and teachers? Failure to exercise for 60 minutes each and every day, including weekends, leads to expulsion for students and instant firing for teachers. Just follow the science. After all, a 2020 study indicated that individuals who had obesity in childhood had a 3 times higher risk of mortality in early adulthood. Now, I'm no expert, but that sounds a lot more serious than the statistically tiny number of children who have bad reactions with COVID. Now, not to get yucky, but did you know that the CDC suggests sexual abstinence as the most effective way to prevent STDs? I'm sure all the mask enthusiasts here agree and adhere wholeheartedly to that guideline, given the omniscience of the CDC. And as a CDC recommendation, abstinence should be required by the Board of Students, right? Teachers too? I don't know. It's hard to keep up with science roulette. Did you also know that the CDC suggests reducing the number of sexual partners to prevent STDs? Oh yes. Again, Team Mask surely supports this wholeheartedly. As a side note, this is very interesting given that the sexually explicit SEL program that Brenda O'Brien wants to bring to middle schoolers encourages sexual relationships with however many people you want. It's perfectly normal, so you just follow your heart, I guess. So I guess I better stop poking fun at the CDC before Joe Biden kicks down the door and, well, probably forgets his name and just leaves. But continuing, 95,000 people die every year due to drunk driving. According to the Masketeers, it is Germantown School District's responsibility and moral obligation to mandate prohibition. It's a CDC recommendation. Okay, now what about the flu? Where have the maskers been all these years in demanding that the board mandate mask wearing for the flu? What's the difference? Maybe we can just let free Americans make their own individual health decisions. Okay, here are the pertinent facts. After 18 months of this, we know with a very reasonable level of certainty that COVID poses almost zero risk to children. Look past the political spin of various expert organizations and the data is crystal clear. Of the 4.4 million cases reported in children, 0.01% resulted in death. That's not even taking into account seroprevalence data in order to determine a true infection fatality rate, which would make that number almost disappear. And this, of course, is all to say nothing of the lack of evidence indicating that mandated mask wearing actually does any good. A simple comparison of states and countries that required masks versus those that didn't plays well here. Here's the bottom line. Parents are more than welcome to make their own kids wear masks if it makes them feel better, but don't let the emotional and political desires of one group infringe on the liberties of another. Thank you.
Jenny Price. And on deck, we have Kelly Beecher.
Good evening. Jenny Price from Germantown. I'm not going to stand up here and spout a bunch of facts, scientific facts, on either side, because there's plenty of them. I am here tonight to ask the board to keep their original stance on making masks optional for the upcoming school year. Tonight, you have heard and will hear many more parents asking you to make masking our children mandatory. I understand that these parents are fearful of their kids getting sick. We wouldn't be good parents if we didn't fear for our kids. I think that everyone should have healthy fears in life. The key word here is healthy fears. I have a fear of bridges over water. Does that mean that I'll never travel over a bridge over water? Of course not, because I'm smart enough to know that it is an irrational fear that stems from a dream that I had when I was 7 years old. It's not a healthy fear. That is a true story. So as much as I don't want to dismiss anyone's fear, the fear of their children dying from COVID is an irrational, unhealthy fear. More children die from the flu every year, but I have never once heard these parents yelling, "Put masks on our kids. They'll die from the flu." That's because the fear isn't constantly being beaten into their heads like it is with COVID. We want to continue to be able to make the best choices for our own children. If a parent wants their child to wear a mask, that's their decision as that child's parent. I would never disrespect their decision. I'm asking for the same respect from the opposing side. As much as I hate saying the words opposing side, unfortunately, that is what this debate has come to over the last year and a half. So please do not change your minds on optional masking. We know what is best for our own children, no one else. If you were to change your stance on masking, just know that my children will not comply. They will not wear a face covering of any kind, period, end of story. But they will be in school every single day, being taught just like all of the other children. Another thing that I would like to ask of the board is to keep your decision on not making the COVID vaccine mandatory for staff or students. With this morning's FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine, it will make it easier for you to mandate it, and I think you all know that. We are the keepers of our own bodies. No one should ever be forced to take a vaccine if they don't want it. Government entities do not belong in anyone's medical decisions ever. I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is choice, choice, choice. Let us continue to have the choice to make the best decisions for our own families. Thank you.
Kelly, then on deck we have Anna Rufer? Prefer. Thank you.
Good evening. Let me just help you out with my last name for a minute. It's Betcher, not Beecher.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're hearing a lot about masks again tonight. Here we sit. I'm tired. We're all tired. We're rehashing this. This is getting ridiculous. So I asked my children, because I have 3 boys in the Germantown School District. My oldest boy is looking so forward to middle school because he will be reunited with kids that he went to daycare with. He's waited that long to be reunited with some of his friends. I posed the question to him. I said, hey, if you have a choice between changing schools or wearing a mask, what is your choice? He said, I'd rather change schools. Pretty compelling if you ask me. All of us sitting on this side of the room, we're here for freedom, freedom of choice, freedom that I volunteered to give my life for if asked. I volunteered to defend their freedom for free speech. We are here to defend their freedom for free speech, choice for everyone. They are looking to take away choice from everyone. That is not acceptable. Because their health is no more my responsibility. Even if they're laying in a hospital bed, I can't force them. If I am their nurse, I can't force them because there is patient choice. I can't force them. My safety is no more their responsibility Because if they're going to say, hey, my health is your responsibility, then I'm going to say, my safety is your responsibility. You need to get your concealed carry and carry a gun to protect my safety. Sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? It's the same thing. We're talking a lot about SEL. Why are we going to promote a program that is so disgusting? It's not up to the school to teach our kids to develop. We're teaching these kids to become more sexually active at a younger age. Why? Why are we doing this? The choices that this board are making, they're making me want to pull my kids from Germantown Public School. 3 boys. 3 boys. How much funding are you going to lose? I'm willing to pay for private school tuition. There was a gentleman that we're familiar with, Mr. George Orwell. The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. We had a president that said, once a government is committed to the principle of silencing the voice of the opposition, it has only one way to go, and that is down the path of increasingly repressive measures until it becomes a source of terror to all its citizens and creates a country where everyone lives in fear. That was Harry Truman. I stand on principle and conviction, and that is what I have taught my children. I do not change my principles or conviction for convenience. I never have and I never will. I say what I mean and I mean what I say, so you can believe I mean it when I say I am done with Germantown Public School.
Anna, and then we have Krista Dierson. Dierson, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Prefer. 2 of my daughters will be attending County Line Elementary this fall. I have serious concerns about the return to school plan, specifically the COVID mitigation procedures for this upcoming school year, and I am not alone. As a parent, you have to be the biggest advocate for your child. I understand that all of us here, are fiercely protective of our children. I tell my children that my #1 job as their mother is to keep them safe. The second thing is to be a good human, to be kind to one another, and think about others and how our choices affect them, especially now that we are living in a pandemic. We all want to keep kids, teachers, and staff healthy so that schools can stay open and parents can stay at work. Thankfully, last year, schools did stay open, but our district followed local and national health recommendations to mitigate COVID-19, which included wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing, proper air filtration, contact tracing in classrooms, and other safety measures. Our district based their decisions on the most up-to-date science-based evidence, not emotion or popular opinion. We aren't talking about the same virus we dealt with last school year. It has mutated, and this Delta variant is more contagious than the previous strain. Child hospitalizations are the highest they've been during the whole pandemic. So why do we have little to no precautions in place to mitigate risks? Even vaccinated adults can carry and transmit this virus. All of this makes masking essential, and the greatest benefits occur when everyone is wearing masks. One suggestion is to start the school year with a mask requirement and reevaluate in 4 to 6 weeks. This gives our kids some protection and buys time until a vaccine is available. The plan can be fluid and change based on new data and recommendations from the experts in public health, such as the CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics. Currently, both recommend that students, staff, and visitors wear masks indoors at all times, regardless of vaccine status. If we aren't following these guidelines from our local and national doctors, scientists, and epidemiologists, then what exactly are you basing your decisions on? My 9-year-old daughter has asked me, "Mommy, why do we mask to protect ourselves and others, but other people won't do the same for me?" How do you answer that as a parent? I understand that these decisions are incredibly difficult. I am, however, urging you to reconsider the mask requirement, especially in the elementary schools, to keep schools open and communities safe. Let's partner with our healthcare providers to reduce the transmission of the Delta variant this fall, not ignore their advice and act like this isn't happening. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Krista, and then we have Pam Schultz.
My name is Krista Dearson. I'm the mom of a 7- and 3-year-old and a family practice doctor working locally. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not my affiliated institution. I'm here due to the de-escalation of the COVID-19 mitigation procedures in schools, most importantly, universal indoor masking. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, and the Wisconsin Department of Health Services all recommend universal indoor masking for all in schools, and I urge you to heed their advice. With the emergence of the Delta variant, we are again seeing a spike of cases. Make no mistake, this is not the same virus as last school year. It is a much more contagious strain, meaning one person that's infected last year infected 2 to 3 people on average, but the Delta variant infects up to 8 people on average. You are also 8 times more likely to get infected if you're unvaccinated versus vaccinated. And remember, all children under 12 are unvaccinated, putting them in a very vulnerable position. As a parent of a 7-year-old, I have no other way to protect my child other than the measures the school decides to utilize. And if it's optional masking, that does nothing. It is all or nothing. Schools were very successful last year at reducing the spread of COVID-19 by using universal masking as well as the layered mitigation approaches. Good quality data showed these measures, when used together, reduced all viral transmission, including COVID-19, universal masking in many studies being one of the most important measures. I think we're all grateful that the severity of the original COVID-19 virus in children was low, but that being said, it was not 0. Last school year, 350 children deaths and 15,000 hospitalizations were reported, and with the Delta variant, previously healthy kids are being hospitalized at increased rates. This month alone, pediatric hospitalization rates in the country are rising by 22%, and pediatric ICUs around the country are at full capacity for the first time since the pandemic started. Removing a proven prevention strategy with a more contagious strain on the rise makes no logical sense. Even if we use all the same measures as last school year, the infection rate will still be higher before we remove the prevention strategies in place. If the number of infected kids is higher, everything rises. The number of kids missing school due to illness, the number of kids needing to quarantine, the number of kids becoming severely ill requiring hospitalization, and yes, the number of children who will die from COVID-19. A mask to me is not a political statement. It's not an impenetrable force that will stop all COVID transmission. It's one of the tools we've been using successfully to keep schools open while minimizing the risk of infection. We live in a time where opinion and expertise are falsely viewed as equivalent. You and the Board of Education are the experts in the education of my child, and I trust that you do that to the best of your abilities, but you are not the experts in public health. Schools trust physicians to make decisions for the health of children all year long, and I evaluate countless children for sports physicals, broken bones, fevers, other illness while working with parents to form a safe back-to-school plan. And if you trust us to make medical decisions for your children, then why are you choosing, in this instance, to go against our medical advice? Thanks.
Thank you. Pam, and on deck we have Meredith Lohmeyer.
Hi, I'm Pam Schultz. I'm coming to you as a Germantown resident, as a mom, as a pediatrician with MCW and Children's, although my views tonight are my views, not those of my employer. But I also come to you as a mom of a high-risk special needs child. I can't imagine being on the board this past year and those difficult decisions you guys have made, and listening to arguments from both sides that have been pretty heated on a lot of subjects this year, and you guys have done a good job mediating through things and not letting things get out of control, and that has got to have been a hard year for you. Throughout this pandemic, you made difficult decisions, but you made the decisions looking at the best, safest education for all of our students, not just some healthy students who are in that 0.1% of your child may become ill. But if that's your child in that 0.1 who dies, that's your child. Public health is a public responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to make sure that we take care of each other and we provide safe and free education for everybody. Every child does deserve a free education, but a safe and equal or equitable free education. When you're looking at masking and the risks, you also have to look at the equality of things. our lower income population, our Black population, our Hispanic population, our people of color are at higher risk of illness and severity of illness of COVID-19, especially with the Delta variant. So if you're not going to look at, necessarily my child who's a high risk, you have to look at all the children in the Germantown school system. We're not all made of healthy, upper middle class people who have the ability to fight this disease the same as everybody else. I agree, kids need to be in school. My kids were out of school last year. It was not a good situation, but that's the only option we had. They need to be in school, but having a mask on is the only way people in school are going to be safe. The current plan you have is just so wishy-washy. We're not going to do the mediation anymore. We're not going to separate kids. We're not going to separate lunches. We're going to have everybody in the same thing. We're not looking at distancing. We're not looking at any of the strategies. It's supposed to be school as normal with masks optional, which I think is kind of going way overboard. I will tell you, though, that I'm not even sure my child can be in school next year. I emailed the board, the KMS principal, his teacher for next year, his special education teacher, and the school nurse 2 weeks ago to ask what the plan was for my son, and I have received no information at all. School starts in less than 2 weeks, and I don't know if my son's going to be able to go. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know is there a plan. Is there a plan to keep him safe? We have plans in action to keep people with allergies safe. We have plans in action to keep people who are, disabled safe. I don't even know the plan for my son. Thank you.
Meredith, and then we have Tracy Parker.
Hi, good evening to all the members of the board, and good evening to everyone in this room. I think it's awesome that you give us the opportunity to talk with you, and I came here to hear from my fellow community members, to learn, and to ask you to reconsider your decision to make masks optional. A lot of information has been shared. I'm not here as an expert or a doctor. I'm here as a parent. I have 3 kids, 2 are in the district. They've gone to Germantown schools their entire lives. I've always had a positive experience, and so I thank each of you for the role that you play in the daily operation of our schools. I love Germantown School District. I have a different approach tonight. What I did is I read through the Germantown School District's mission and vision statement, and with that there are several beliefs that I think I would like to ask you to think upon when you make that decision tonight. Because ultimately you're hearing both lots of sides, lots of arguments, but you're the ones that are going to actually make this decision. And as you make that decision regarding masks, I ask you to consider these 3 beliefs from the Germantown School District mission statement. The first one is that each individual has the right to a safe environment. So as you make that decision regarding masks and other mitigation measures, how does your decision keep each student safe and give them a safe environment for learning? The other belief I'd like you to consider is that the quality of life is dependent on a healthy community. I totally agree. So when you're making that decision about masks, which way is going to keep the community the healthiest as possible? I know none of us here want our kids to be at home. We don't want to get sick. We want our families to stay healthy. And the last belief that I wanted you to reflect upon, and I think this is the most important one, is that each person has an obligation to others. I believe that. I raise my family that way. So as a school district, school board, as you make that choice about mask mandates, are you holding that belief? Are you living that value that each person has an obligation to others? Yes, I know there's so many different viewpoints and people want to have their freedom to make that choice, and I totally agree. But at the end of the day, are we doing for others? Are we making the choice that is going to keep the most people safe and healthy? So, thank you.
Thank you. Tracy, then we have Alyssa Paulo.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Parker, and I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old in the district. My children have been home since March of 2019. Tonight you see just me standing here, but I want you to picture 500 of our community members behind me. I'm here to represent comments from a petition that was started just 5 days ago and has 500 signatures. The petition calls for following expert guidance and requiring universal mask wearing in Germantown schools. Here are some of the community's comments. I'm a student and I feel very unsafe with barely anyone wearing a mask in school. This past year, I was fully virtual student for the duration of the school year. I was not comfortable with what precautions the district was taking then, and I'm even more so uncomfortable now. Without an adequate virtual option, making masks mandatory will alleviate student, parent, and staff concerns, as well as anxiety about the coming school year. Schools must be a safe environment, and right now our schools are not. I'm fully aware of the fact that kids need to be in school. One way to ensure this is to follow safety measures. The kids did it all last year, and we were able to stay in school. With the aggressive spread of Delta variant, it is foolish to put our kids, our teachers, and other school staff at risk. Without a mask mandate, that is exactly what we're doing. Our community's lives are much more important than this ridiculous notion of freedom to not wear a mask. Implementing universal masking while local case burden is substantial or higher, currently high in Germantown, and kids under 12 cannot be vaccinated is the safest way to protect our children, teachers, staff, and by extension, the larger community. As a pediatrician, there is zero question that mandatory masking is the only choice to keep children safe. Please stop listening to the angry fringe. Look at the traditional trusted sources. American Academy of Pediatrics, American Hospital Association, AMA, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins. There's no harm to wearing a mask, just ask a surgeon. Our community is woefully under-vaccinated. With Delta variant coming in strong, children are at risk for illness, even death. This can be prevented by simply requiring masks in school. These are the voices of our Germantown families. This is my voice. Last year, we didn't have a playbook. We did our best with the limited information we had. This year, we have numerous playbooks from the CDC, not just the CDC, though, American Academy of Pediatrics, Wisconsin Department of Health, Ozaki, Washington County Health Department, and the guidance is clear, crystal clear. These trusted scientists, doctors, epidemiologists that work in this field say vaccines are the best tool for fighting the virus, and that lower vaccination rates strongly correlate to more COVID. Unfortunately, Washington County lags other counties near us in vaccinating the 12 to 17-year-olds, and most of our kids aren't eligible for this vaccine yet. This leaves masks as our best tool. This isn't my opinion. It's in the playbooks. We have the playbook. Why aren't we using it? Thank you.
Alyssa, and then on deck we have Diane Peterson.
Alyssa Paulo, Germantown. I want to touch on the SEL curriculum further. I remain concerned how Second Step aligns with the CASEL core competencies, and all core competencies are woven throughout the units and elements of Second Step. This is visible when you view their alignment chart. I believe I previously shared with the board the YouTube interview with Jason Littlefield, who is an educator and former CASEL and SEL specialist since 2014. In this interview, he outlines how CASEL has redefined SEL as transformative SEL, and students are critically examining the root causes of inequity. Equity, we know, is one of the key buzzwords for the CRT ideology. I also found on the Second Step website their anti-racism and anti-bias resources. They highlight Learning for Justice, which was previously Teaching Tolerance, which before that was the Southern Poverty Law Center. My question for the board is, will these anti-racist and anti-bias resources be incorporated into the middle school SEL curriculum? As for the Love is Respect website, I recently visited this site. My first red flag was the immediate heads up pop-up, which instructs students how to hide their browsing history and escape the website quickly. The Love is Respect website also directs students to another website called Scarlet Teen, which has more content that I feel is not appropriate for students. Regardless of the website content, I do not feel we should be using any resources that instruct students how to hide information from their parents, cover their tracks, and do other shady behaviors. If the board is going to proceed with using this curriculum in the middle school, there must be firm expectations set on how this curriculum is implemented and what materials are approved for use in advance. Transparency is hugely important, and I strongly recommend for the Second Step SEL lessons plans and materials to be available to all parents. If Second Step says that it is not allowed due to trademark, copyright, intellectual property, or proprietary arguments, then we should not be using these resources. I also would like to see the Love is Respect website blocked from all district computers, which is something West Bend has already done. Lastly, I want to point out that the Mequon-Thiensville School District collected enough signatures as of yesterday to recall 4 of their school board members. Somerset District had a successful recall of 2 board members. Oconomowoc District recently had 3 board members step down due to community backlash over their poor leadership. And Waukesha School District flipped their board this spring. I bring this up to highlight that parents have had enough and we are taking back our schools. We want our children's education to be front and center of what we do and to push aside mask mandates, critical race theory, and other political agendas that interfere with building a thriving education. Thank you.
Diana, and Krista Ewert is on deck.
Good evening. Tracy, do you remember what happened on April 13th, 2021? Ray, how about April 15th, 2019? Amanda and Bob, April 27th, 2020? Mike, how about April 15th, 2019? And Tom, what about April 13th, 2021? Those are the dates you signed your oath of office. I have copies of your oath of office, and each states, I, having been elected to the office of Germantown School Board, but not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. You made that pledge. How well do you think you're doing upholding those 2 constitutions? Or are you upholding the desires of what we now know as CRT, SEL, in other words, forms of American Marxism and other anti-American ideologies, anti to those constitutions? I believe most of you probably didn't know this was coming into the schools, and now it's at all levels of government, federal and state and local. You can't play deaf anymore because you've heard this for months and maybe even years. People are desperately trying to get into the United States. For what reason? Socialism? CRT? SEL? Wanting to promote racial issues? No, they're coming because they want the freedom of those constitutions that are not offered by American socialism, which seems you're willing to allow in the Germantown curriculum. While not a lawyer, there might be one willing to make a case allowing this anti-American material in Germantown schools a violation of your oath. Teaching what is bad for America is not expected by these parents. You've heard they do not want this anti-American ideology taught, which only makes each and every student feel guilty rather than proud of being an American. Lastly, Wisconsin State Statutes, Chapter 120.12, Duties of the School Board, subsection 2M, regarding teacher effectiveness, states, beginning in the 2014-15 school year, evaluate the effectiveness of each teacher and principal employed in the school district by using a system established in a state statute and another state statute. Are you listening to the National Teacher Union rather than these 2 constitutions? Freedom is never free, and it's not silly. It must be fought for, and these parents are fighting. Please join them and fight with them.
Krista, and then on deck we have Jody Graff.
Krista Ewert, Germantown. I have 3 kids in the school district. One thing before I start, I just wanted to bring up that you haven't been asking people to say where they're from, and that's an inconsistency across the board. I just wanted to make sure that we stayed consistent with posting everybody's name at the end of this meeting in the minutes. And also I wanted to take a minute to thank the board. We've been here for months speaking to you, and we have made some ground. We've started adding the curriculum on the website. We haven't seen the teacher in-service information on there, but I'm assuming that's because there hasn't been any yet for this coming school year. So we're still looking for that. We've added policies that we've asked for to the employee handbook. Thank you. At the last policy committee, Bob, not here, but wanted to thank him specifically for bringing those policies to be a part of the policy. And thank you to Tracy and Amanda for bringing those with a positive recommendation to the board tonight. What I really wanted to speak about was SEL, and specifically the Love is Respect website. So what I take special problem with, I know that's the wrong wording, but what I have the most issue with the SEL website, Love is Respect, is that it teaches and promotes students to hide things from their parents. How in a school can we promote students hiding information from their parents? We should be teaching them to have those conversations with their parents. And I'm not naive to the fact that kids are sexually active, but having it be promoted from a teacher or from a website that's given to them from a teacher, saying in casual relationships, sometimes it's better to step into that intimacy with sex to 13-year-olds. This is totally inappropriate. So I'm asking that you vote to take away this SEL program, because if it's promoting a website that has something this toxic, this unmoral in it, how can we trust the rest of the content? If you don't choose to remove the SEL program, at the very least, make it an opt-in program where parents review the information before it is shown to their students and have to choose that it be shown to their students. Thank you.
Jody, and then we have Richard Bink.
Jody Kraft, Germantown. First, the Second Step program and its affiliates do not align with the policies and ethics of GSD. In particular, the loveisrespect.org website seems designed to drive a wedge between kids and their parents. So let's keep in mind these are middle school kids, 11 to maybe 14 years old. The KMS counselors were not looking for a sex ed class, they simply wanted to instill kindness and empathy. So yes, I take issue with a site that states what to do if your parents don't approve. Sex can be an important part of your relationship and a fun and gratifying activity for you and your partners, plural, to enjoy together. 11 to 14 years old, and here's a golden nugget. Relationships look different depending on the community and cultural context you're living in, particularly in the United States, a country with broad existing inequities on the basis of race, gender, sexuality, ability, class, education, and any number of other identifications. Sounds like a direct violation of our commitment to equality and just another website that's trying to tell our kids how oppressed and classified they are. We need to stop supporting companies that don't support our kids and find a better company that is more inclusive and loving. And regarding masks, as usual, this is very simple. No one human is the God over another, and no one has the right to take away another's medical freedom. We already exhausted this topic last year. Anyone who wants to mask their child already has that right, and we need the board to stand for choice. There are actively GSD parents dealing with battles of cancer that do not want their kids wearing masks or getting any experimental injections. These are arguably the highest risk families saying, no, give me choice. Not to mention, these kids are dealing with a parent going through cancer. And in one case, having lost a wonderful mom that we all knew and loved. These young kids already have so much unnecessary stress and anxiety in their lives. We all do. And the stress of forced anything is not something we can allow anyone to take on. So you want to talk about social and emotional learning? Do you think forced masking our kids' faces gives the ability for social and emotional learning? When they can't socially see emotion, they're told they're dirty, they shouldn't interact with one another in a healthy way. Why do you think suicides are up so high? Is it worth it? For some, their time at school might be their window of joy during the day, and it should be for all of them. Keep masks a choice. We do not co-parent with anyone, and for these parents, sending their kids to school, even with a mask in their backpack, will not be an option. Freedom first, please. Thank you.
Richard, and then on deck we have Gail Trapp.
Hi, everyone. First of all, my name is Richard Biank, B-I-A-N-K. So, I, like any other parent and grandparent, don't want to see a child get sick or certainly die from a disease. But I did some research on numbers. In 2019, there were 9,173 deaths among children. Now, CDC tells us that from January 1st of 2020 last week, there were 296 deaths of COVID deaths for children. That means children die from other things 31 times more than from COVID. The chance of a child dying from COVID, can everybody see that on the board? 0.00006. I have seen the negative effect of wearing masks on my grandson, 7 years old, when COVID hit. He became socially less interactive. It just kind of took away his joy. And so let's put these numbers in the Germantown School District. We can expect 0.7 deaths from all causes in Germantown out of the 3,900 students. But we can expect less than 1/40th of a death caused by COVID.
Gail, and then we have Nicole Boyd.
Gail Trapp, Germantown School District. I recently went back and listened to a lot of the different Congress interviews of members of the CDC, the NIH, and NIAID. Highly encourage everybody to go back and go ahead and do that. Because one topic that did come up was mask on kids in school and obviously mask mandates. And after reviewing all of those, I am still very convinced that putting masks on kids in school and anywhere else actually is just political theater, and it's not science. If you go back and you listen to a lot of them, they continually asked over and over and over, what is the science? What are the groups of people that you looked at and that you took all your data from so that other people can peer review it and actually come back and duplicate that data?
very, very few studies actually produced what they were telling and what they were mandating and telling people to do. And besides, the CDC, just so you know, it's not a government agency, it's just their opinion for a lot of stuff that they come out and tell us. So the director of the NIH, his name is Francis Collins, he admitted in a recent interview within the last week here that there's an extremely low risk for children to even catch COVID. But they want your children to wear masks. And his whole reason for wanting the children to wear masks was because then they wouldn't have to shut down schools. So where's the science? If you want to tell me, if you're from the NIH, where's the science then? But if you just don't want the inconvenience of having to shut down a school because a kid isn't wearing a mask and you have some kids that come down with COVID, but at the same time, the CDC and the FDA tell us that the tests don't work. 90% of them are false positives. Okay, so how are we supposed to understand what does that even mean for us? So when's the last time in the last 10 years that we had to shut down Germantown School District because of the flu? Did we shut it down for chicken pox? When was the last time we shut it down? Okay? And then Dan Crenshaw actually was interviewing, it was probably about 2 months ago, that Rochelle Wolinski from the CDC about masks. And she was asked repeatedly about what is a study that you're actually using for the science that masks work. And she kept citing a study that came from India many years ago, and it was never actually peer-reviewed once the other scientists looked into it, and that was actually debunked many years ago. So then he asked, well, what other data and what other research have you done? And you know what? She couldn't come up with any other study. So when people say follow the science, they keep saying do this because the science says, the science says. Tell me what the science is. Show me the study. They never produce it. Go back and listen to them. Go back and actually listen to them. They never produce the science. That's the problem. No masks, make it optional. Thank you.
Nicole, and then on deck we have Lynn Hirsch.
Hi, I'm Nicole Boyd, and I have a daughter in 11th grade at Germantown High School. I'm not here to quote statistics or points. I'm just more looking at the emotional standpoint of masks. When we were originally doing masks and going to school every other day, my daughter, her depression, her anxiety went completely off the racks. You know, not being able to socialize with her friends, having these masks mandated was not very good for her. I see kids wearing masks that I don't see them as social as kids that are not wearing masks. They're more sociable. So I'm just here to say, keep masks optional. Let students have the choice, let parents have the choice. Decide whether or not they want their kids to wear a mask. Because I feel that if we go back to wearing masks, a lot of our students, our children, I think their anxiety, their depression will skyrocket back it up, and we don't know what would happen. So please, no masks, make masks optional for those people that want to wear masks. Thank you.
Lynn, and then we have Rob Klein.
Hi, my name is Lynn Hirsch, Germantown. New England Medical Journal, May 2020. It's clear that universal masking alone is not a panacea. A mask alone will not prevent people from contaminating their hands and spreading the virus to others. In many cases, the desire for widespread masking is a reflexive reaction to anxiety over the pandemic. 2 reasons all-day masking is bad. Reason 1, Dr. Russell Blaylock, a nationally recognized board-certified neurosurgeon, health practitioner, and author, contends that mask wearing is not only useless, but possibly even dangerous because it's unwise to breathe one's own breath for long periods of time. The bacteria your mouth The bacteria from your mouth gets trapped in the mask. The mouth is the dirtiest part of the human body. Case in point, a group of Florida parents concerned about the potential harm of wearing masks during the school day sent their children's face coverings for analysis to the University of Florida's Research and Education Center. Of the 6 masks that were examined, 5 were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and fungi. 3 of the masks had dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. No viruses were detected on the mask, although the test is capable of detecting them. Reason 2, children's language skills correlate to their academic achievement. Masks hinder children's development, including speech, language, and social interactions. Language and speech comprehension happens through not only sound but also visual communication, both of which are handicapped by facial mask coverings. A teacher can't demonstrate pronunciation, empathy, and nonverbal communication without seeing full facial expression and mouths. May 2021 University of Louisville study conducted using data from the CDC covering multiple seasons reports that mask mandates and use are not associated with lower SARS-CoV spread among U.S. states. Summary, children are at an extraordinarily low risk of dying from COVID, and transmission of the virus among children in schools and daycares is very rare. Based on CDC published data, 99.998% of children that contract COVID survive. Viruses mutate all the time. Are we going to wear a mask for the rest of our lives? What about acquiring herd immunity? Go ahead and wear a mask if that makes you feel better, but do not tell me and my family to do something that we feel impairs our health. That's our right to choose, and no one should take that choice away. After all, it's my body, my choice. Ben Franklin said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Thank you.
Rob, and then we have Melanie Smythe.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rob Klein. I'm a parent of 3 MacArthur elementary students. So when traveling this meeting tonight, who crossed a bridge? When you arrived, were the lights operational or arcing? Was the new Performing Arts Center structurally sound or collapsing? What was your level of trust in the people responsible? As an engineer, our code of ethics state our fundamental canons as such. Engineers in our fulfillment of professional duties shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public, perform services only in areas of their competence, issue public statements only in an objective and truthful manner, and so on. As elected officials in charge of students, do you hold paramount their safety, health, and welfare? The board's mission statement read earlier demonstrates it should follow the same code of ethics. So I ask you, if you chose to vote no to a mask mandate, what would change that stance? Is it subject matter expert consensus, analytics that withstand peer review and rigorous scientific process, or rapidly spreading Delta variant? All that is already in front of us. We need the board to be consistent in trusting experts, from engineers to epidemiologists. So what is an acceptable number of students to be sick, to lose classroom time, be hospitalized, or die? Unlike engineers who have to stand by their designs, your vote won't hold you civilly or criminally liable, but each and every one on this board will be held morally responsible. Morally responsible by your neighbors, community, your conscience, and the students who look to you to hold paramount their safety, health, and welfare. Now, this isn't about me, my children, or everyone in this room. I petition you to institute a mask mandate and do what's right and not what is loudest. Thank you.
Melanie, and then on deck we have Sarah Larson.
Good evening, Melanie Smythe, Germantown. After the last meeting, which I watched on live stream, I wrote you an email covering a couple of things, and today I'm following up on those. One of my suggestions was that this ad hoc curriculum committee should be made more permanent. There seems to be an awful lot of materials that need to be reviewed. It was a little disturbing at the meeting that you said that some critical race theory items were okay, but maybe they shouldn't be at all. there can be a review of lesson plans, which could be put up there with the curriculum. That might be a good thing to do. And also all the professional development classes that the teachers and staff should be taken, should be part of that, so that everything is coordinated. You did miss one policy page, I think, in the policy. I briefly scanned the 280 plus pages of the agenda and packet. Policy 3242, which describes who handles professional development content. And in light of Mrs. O'Brien's actions earlier this year, I think there needs to be more oversight of that information and a revamping of that policy number. Again, it was 3242, 3242. The main reason that I actually wrote to you was the web page, which is the billboard to the world. And for several months, and even with the conversion to the new website, we still have the diversity, equity, and inclusion page. And this afternoon, I went there and I looked and I thought, oh, wow, look, they've made a change. And guess what? You added 8 letters and 1 /. Woo! In the title. Nothing else has changed. It's even got the same wrong board president's name on the bottom. That's ridiculous. How unserious are you about this? Listen to what these parents are saying. They don't want critical race theory or anything about it on that page or on the school district at all. I also sent you a comparison of the non-discrimination page from the website, which seems to contradict what's on that page, and that actually is law, federal law. 1964 is a big year. That needs to be redirected. The last thing is, what about the ACE committee? We haven't seen any reports. What is it doing? What has it done? Is it still in effect? It has big goals, big things that it's doing. It's all about policy. It's all about professional development, hiring, community and parent engagement. I haven't heard anything. Where are the reports? We haven't seen anything. So Mr. Stousland, take down that page.
Thank you. Sarah, and then on deck we have Kim Higginbotham.
Good evening, Sarah Larson, Germantown. So the question is to mask or not to mask? And I'm here to offer a suggestion that might be workable. One of the things that you took off the table was the virtual option. And by leaving masks optional and offering the virtual option, most likely you're going to need virtual anyhow based on the way the numbers are trending in other areas. So why not go ahead and just allow a virtual option? The kids can opt back in at any time, at least for the middle school and high school, because then that really takes care of the folks that want masks and are so adamant about it, that would provide the virtual option for their children. I echo the sentiments of everyone who has presented about SEL. I think, like everything else, what started out as a good intention has been co-opted for other uses. So I ask that you either rescind the use of that particular program or don't allow any digital materials to be used and have it be totally instructor-led and the board approving any handouts that are given to those students. I also liked that opt-in option for students, but I think really removing that digital access very well could solve your problem. Regarding the physical examination policy, having served on the policy committee during my board service, we do have the ability to not add in policies that Neola recommends. And so I'm concerned that this one specifically would be tied to federal funding. It would be understandable if special ed related things or anti-discrimination
were tied to federal funds, I'd be very curious as to exactly what that is, because in looking at the background, changing that one sentence, thinking that that's going to appease the parents by saying the board will not, you've now inactivated the legal protection that Neola claims to provide by having altered their canned language. So I really recommend that you eliminate that policy altogether and look into why it would have been tied to federal funds. But aside from that, as always, thank you for your service. You're doing a great job, and thank you for your patience listening to everyone tonight. Thanks.
Next we have Kim, and then Gary Poindexter.
Kim Higginbotham, Germantown. I would initially like to point out to the board the observation that many of the advocates for masks removed their masks in order to speak tonight. I just found that interesting. Is it due to the importance of speaking clearly in addition to one's expression in order to communicate? How is that different for our kids? I will not stand up here and pull over lists of pros and cons. Neither will I recite a variety of facts and possible fiction. As we've heard tonight, there is a plethora of information falling on both sides of this argument. This fact, in and of itself, is one of the most valid arguments for leaving the decision to wear a mask up to each individual child and his or her parent. Should it not be the responsibility of the parent to pore over the data and determine what is best for their individual child? Anything else would be an overreach of board making decisions based on both personal biases and possible fears. How do you tell a parent that has determined wearing a mask is detrimental to both the physical and mental health of their child that they must force their child to wear a mask? Parents that inevitably decide to have their child wear a mask must believe in the efficiency or efficacy of that mask. That being said, why do they worry about a child not wearing one? Their child is safe, right? Because if the mask is ineffective for the child wearing it, why would their child wear one anyway? I implore the board to make the right decision and uphold the decision to make masks optional. Leave decisions on the health of one's child in the hands of their parents. In closing, there are two very distinct sides of this argument, one in which we would certainly debate all day. In the end, I'm certain the board would not make the decision that a child will be unable to wear a mask at school. Therefore, you cannot, in good conscience, force a child to wear one either. This is as simple and concise of an argument that I can make. You cannot validate one person's right to protect their child while invalidating another's. Thank you for your time.
Gary, and then on deck we have Jen Genke.
Hello. Mine's going to be really choppy because I'm going to try to follow the recommendation that we don't duplicate too much here. I'm pro-choice on masks. Krista covered everything I wanted to say as far as thank you for listening and putting the suggestions in the policy manuals. The last topic on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding mitigation and return to school plan. I'm presuming that's what's posted on the website. I fully support the plan as documented, and I hope you don't make any significant changes tonight. It would have been great to hear or have some detail in the documentation in the packet for the meeting on mitigations. There's a lot of discussion about masks. There's significant other mitigations that can be done. I hope you're already doing them. And it would have been great to know ahead of time so I could comment on those, but I can't, so here goes anyway. I do have some real science that has been out for a long time. Some of the engineers hopefully will stay up with this. It says if you are exposed to air that has 3,000 microscopic water droplets per cubic meter containing any virus continuously for 30 minutes, you are likely to be affected by the virus. There are other mitigating circumstances that can make that 30 minutes longer or shorter. Increasing air exchange rate significantly reduces the concentration of microscopic water droplets. This can be done by increasing the speed of the air through the environment, simply cranking up the fans a little higher, or increasing the amount of outside air. There is a balance when you add outside air, especially in the wintertime, you're going to have to heat it more. It's a pretty low-cost solution if you can really jack up the amount of outside air. A lot of people like to quote the CDC. Here's what CDC says in regard to portable HEPA filtration units. They are effective at cleaning air within spaces, I'm talking about a classroom, To reduce the concentration of airborne particles, which the microscopic water droplets would be, including SARS-CoV-2 viral particles. Thus, they give effective air exchanges without the need for conditioning outdoor air. I looked it up. For $100, you can buy one that'll is big enough for most of the classrooms I'm familiar with in Germantown. It also includes a UVC light. The UVC light, in case you don't know about that, kills bacteria and viruses of all kinds. So it'll kill 100% of whatever passes under the light. You don't want to let that light out of the unit. It'll harm people. Somebody referenced seasonal flu infections, hospitalizations. Those who like to quote those need to go look at what the statistics were for others. And quickly, there was a study released Friday from the CDC, from Georgia schools, that says there was no significant difference between students with masks and those without. Thank you very much.
Jen, and you're the last one.
My name is Jen Genke. I live in Treetops in Germantown. I have children in County Line, Kennedy Middle School, the high school, and the UW system. Just for a second, let's talk about the masks. No one thinks they're fun or comfortable, but they are necessary. My UW students have already been informed that masks are required for all in-person classes, and those are vaccinated adults. Their response? Thank God we finally get to be in class. And this is everybody's goal, kids in school in person. In Washington County, as of today, children between the ages of 12 and 17, only 30% are vaccinated. That means it's critical to follow the CDC instructions to mask. This is not politics, this is public health. We don't allow children in school with pink eye or lice because it's contagious and easily spread. We take all of the precautions to keep the children healthy, and those are illnesses that don't kill people or have lifetime effects. COVID is highly contagious, it's easily spread, it has lifelong effects and will kill you. The only reasonable thing to do is to mask to mitigate. It is your job as the school board to keep our children safe and learning. It is why we do background checks on our staff, why we control what the kids are seeing on their school-issued tablets. It is why we don't allow weapons or drugs in the school. This is a public health issue. Masks keep more kids healthy than no masks. It is your job to follow the CDC public health instructions to keep kids healthy and safe in school. Now, my kids remember COVID year 1. That was when we all got sent home. COVID year 2, it wasn't real because we never went to school. Let's make sure that COVID year 3 is not the year, oh, I remember when my friends died because we didn't wear masks.
Thank you all. Moving on. Approval of the minutes, August 9th, 2021, Board of Education and closed session minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the August 9th, 2021 Board of Education minutes and closed session minutes.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. All right, I'm with you. I had a request. We're going to take a 5-minute comfort break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are resuming at 8:40. Moving on to item 5, Policy Committee, discussion and action to approve policy updates and modifications. Mr. Stousland.
Yes, I'm going to hand that over to Ms. Reineman.
The policy committee met last week and reviewed quite a few of the policies, 100 through 9800, not all of them, as we do them in batches at different times of the year. But the policy reviewed, and the following policies we are bringing forward with a positive recommendation. Please take a look specifically to 2132 as the language was added related to what is now the employee handbook on NO and P. And as regards to 5310, the statement that we added at the beginning, which states, it's the very beginning that states the board shall not direct the school staff to conduct a physical or invasive exam. What I know of this policy from everything that we've just learned is this was adopted in Germantown in 2011. I know that we were told this was, the language comes from federal code, so federal funding is somewhat tied to it. Are you able to give us a little more information, Mr. Southland?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the handout that I gave that particular night with all the information that came around that. My understanding is once a district has it in their policies, it can't be removed. Now, I can obviously verify that and double check that. I meet with the Neola person after, or later this week.
Right.
So.
And we can definitely circle back and look at that. What I can tell you from policies that they are put in place to protect children, never harm them. So we are moving with the following recommendation.
Can we list the policies, the numbers that we're approving tonight?
The motion was to approve the 100 to 9800.
Okay. We have a positive recommendation from the policy committee to approve the policies. Does not require a second. Do we have any discussion?
Just one quick discussion on 3242 that somebody brought up. Again, these are done in batches, so we can definitely make sure that that is added to the next batch of policies.
Mr. Love.
I was disappointed to not see policy 5310 in there. So we can't discuss it tonight because it's not on the agenda, but...
It's in there.
It's in there.
Oh, is it really?
No.
No.
Yep.
5310 is in there? It wasn't in the list I looked in. I even did a text search for it.
It's in the packet.
We had, the policy committee handled it as an individual item during our meeting. It wasn't part of the batch that Ms. Ryan...
Oh, okay, so that's why I don't know about it.
But it's in the packet. It's in the board.
It's in your board packet.
Though. I didn't see it in there. So what's the deal with it?
So as I stated, we added some information on the beginning, of the very beginning. It said the board shall not direct school staff to conduct a physical or an invasive procedure. And as I stated, the information that this policy was adopted in 2011, so this isn't new. And then, as Mr. Southland said, that there is some federal information that we're going to double check on, triple check actually.
Mr. Martin.
We heard from 2 audience members tonight who said we should scrap the policy, completely get rid of it. I guess I see it a different way. I think we can send an even stronger message if we keep the policy and say that we shall not do something. The absence of a policy, I think, just opens it up that stuff could happen.
I would agree with that. If you don't have a policy in place, that just leaves that door wide open to allow something to happen, and you don't have anything, there's no backbone or back information there to say, nope, hold up, we can't do that. And the information about the board will notify, the way that I was informed on this is that this is how everybody would be notified. It would be an open meeting, conversation, and I mean, I don't foresee that happening, but if, everything would be in the public side.
Mr. Belk, do you have a comment?
The only, I was going to just mention that particular piece, but it also, if you look at the bottom of the policy, it refers to a couple of state statutes, federal information as well, and I believe it was the state statute refers to protection of the pupil or protection of the student, and so it's tied in with that, and like I said, I was just going to mention the same thing that Amanda just mentioned, but.
Okay, I agree with the comments that were made. I think disallowing the policy by board action, saying we will not do this, is as strong, if not stronger, than actually removing the policy. So I'm okay with that part of it. All right, any further discussion? Mike?
I just want to say I couldn't hear, the stage speakers weren't working very well, so that initial, the things you were saying, not you, Amanda, I couldn't hear a thing.
We were getting a little feedback, if you can help us out with that.
No, well,
Little echo.
well, Heather's actually turning the speakers up a little bit on stage, so we can hear better on stage. But, no, I did not
Better
see
over here.
5310. I did check with, when I heard about federal funding, so it is on the agenda. I can talk about it. I emailed Brittany during the citizen comments, and she got back to me and said that she does not know of any federal funding issues. I asked if, you know, she could confirm that some way. You know, she might not know exactly how to confirm that, but if anybody can do it, you know, it's Brittany, our business manager, that can do it. So I think we could eliminate the policy altogether, but I think maybe it should be changed to none of this will be done, and leave it in place. I like that idea also. So thank you for that. And sorry I missed it in the board material. I'm not sure how that happened, but it happened. Maybe it got lost in the 285 pages somewhere.
That was a short one.
But I did do a text search and couldn't believe it wasn't in there, so I don't know what happened with that either. So, thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to Building Committee. Mr. Pollock.
Thank you. We have a couple of items to bring forward to the full board for approval. Mr. Erickson is here in case we do have any questions. First item is regarding the administration building digital control upgrade. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the administration building digital control upgrade as presented at the building committee meeting on August 9th, 2021, and to award Building Master Solutions a contract not to exceed $49,129 with $30,325 funded from Fund 41 and $18,796 to be funded from the Buildings and Grounds Fund 10 budget to complete the entire administration building digital control upgrade.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, but can you confirm the not to exceed number, please? I think what I heard you say, I don't think is what was here, so I just wanted to make sure we get that corrected.
Should be $49,121.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to point out, by going this route, the original plan was to do this over several years. It was recommended or suggested by the building committee that we go back to the company to see, hey, what kind of cost it would be to do it now in one big swoop. And by going this route, we're going to save approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000 by doing it all at once rather than spacing it out.
Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
The second item building committee is bringing forward is regarding the Germantown School District emergency management plans. We've all been provided with the emergency management plans prior to this meeting. We had the opportunity to ask questions, suggest updates to Mr. Erickson, which he has provided back to us. So with regards to this, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Germantown School District's emergency management plans as provided to the Board of Education.
Second.
Any discussion? Mike, go ahead.
Don, when it came to different forms of communication, I didn't see two-way radios in there unless it was, you know, unless a text didn't just come out and say two-way radios and it was buried in there somewhere that I didn't understand. So I believe we have a modern two-way radio system with repeaters, and I didn't see that mentioned in there. And what I'm thinking is depending on the disaster, our radio system might be the only system that works.
You are correct in that. I'm not sure that it does specifically state that it's a two-way radio system. I do believe there's terms of the district using whatever communications is available at the time. I'd have to review the plan and see what it says underneath the communications.
Okay, so is it important that it be there, or is it good the way we are?
What's that?
Is it important that two-way radio communication be mentioned, or is it okay the way it is? So when I read that, I was wondering, are we still using our two-way radio system? Because it's not listed in here.
We do still have the two-way radio system, and it's ready to use it anytime we need it.
Okay, just checking. I'm not sure we need any more than that in the plan. It might be nice to put it in there next time it needs to be reviewed or updated. I don't think we have to do anything more this evening. I'm okay with it.
The biggest change is that each building now has their own individual plan versus being one plan for the entire district.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item 7, unfinished business. Germantown High School Pom and Dance update. Mr. Stout.
Yes, at the last board meeting, the board approved the Pom and Dance overnight for a competition in lacrosse, and with the caveat if they qualified that they would go to nationals, which is in Orlando on February 16th to the 21st, and they did place well enough that they placed second, so they did qualify for nationals, so they would be headed to Orlando. Just wanted to share that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, awesome.
This one, full disclosure, this one's close to the heart here because one of my daughters is part of the POM program. She's not in high school yet, but a lot of these young ladies do coach and volunteer their time to assist with the younger kids as part of the rec program. So very proud of my daughter, but very proud of these ladies for doing as well. I have all the breakdowns if anybody's interested, but the biggest one is that they did take first place in competition, the competition routine, so amongst other trophies. So.
Excellent. Are we looking for a motion on this? Just to
I
cover
think we're
bases?
going to have, because there's nothing in here that allows us, we'll have to bring it back, but it is, I just wanted to share some good news if nothing else, so.
It's a good question, but I think last time the motion was made knowing that this would be the outcome if they placed.
Okay, that was my understanding. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Okay.
And if it's listed under unfinished business, you can motion on it because it's a continuation. So if you feel better, we could make a motion. If we're okay with the understanding from the last meeting, we're okay too.
Well, just to cover our bases and congratulate them, I would say let's make a motion and forward them on to Orlando. I'll accept the motion.
I don't have the exact language, but.
Wing it.
It'd be approved their trip to Orlando, Florida, February 16th to the 21st to compete in the National POMS competition.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Moving on to item B, discussion and possible action regarding middle school social emotional learning SEL program. Mr. Stousman.
Yep, and this was after our last meeting. It was asked by several board members to be put on for further discussion, and I just want to share what I know at this point, that the middle school in their planning are taking the approach that they would do half the number of lessons that are in the program the first year, and the reason for that would be to make sure that they can study the lessons, have time to study the lessons, and also then get information to the parents well ahead of time exactly what's going to be talked about, and parents would have the opt-out option as well. And I did, heard in public comment tonight, and it was already also talked about, is the website, and there's no reason for that website to be anything that our kids need to be using or going on. So that could be part of it as well. So,
can you describe it a little further as far as how this activity is being presented to the students in a resource period, how long it will be, what the activities might be, that it's not an online program, that the online activities are non-existent in this program? Can you just describe it a little bit?
So you're right, it is in a resource period, so it's not in a specific class, and they're designed to be 10 to 15 minutes in length, and so there might be a topic with some discussion questions, reflection questions. They might read a short article and then, have pair share where kids talk about it, and but it's facilitated around the different topics from, from mental health to bullying, to what I would say are topics that our kids, many kids struggle with, and we're continuing to see the need and increase need around these topics. So that's how it works, about 15 minutes. And this would be, again, every other week.
Okay. And you stated that all of this would be made open to the parents, and they have the ability to opt out of it if they see something they don't want their kids talking about?
Yep, and they were in the discussions, they won't even start until October, again, to give everyone time and to share all the information.
Okay. I'll just start the discussion, and this one is difficult for me. As someone who has studied curriculum for a long time now, well over a decade, and knowing what Common Core has done to our school system and how all of these problems that you see creeping up in curriculum over the years have become very pervasive in all curriculums that are a nationalized curriculum for the most part, because of Common Core being dictated for every school district in every district in the country. The curriculum companies are very good at sneaking in this stuff that you don't want. So sometimes you have to take the good out of the bad and bring the proper things to our students that are age appropriate. Nothing in the SAL program that we were presented with, all of the activities that the students would be doing had anything to do with talks on sex or talks on websites that will teach you to avoid things from your parents. I don't think our middle school teachers had any idea that that was part of the program, as we didn't either, until we saw the research that we did with the overall program, but none of that was part of the actual activities that our students will be doing. And again, it'll be open, full disclosure. We will be communicating to the parents exactly the topics that will be discussed, or the activities that will be. Some of them are games and activities and team building and growth mindset activities, stuff that I think our middle school teachers have brought to us as a need for our students, something that's very important and necessary, but in an age-appropriate, very quality program, not something that we're trying to indoctrinate students. That's not at all what they're trying to accomplish in all of this. But again, there are the outliers in the curriculum where these curriculum companies create problems for us. And for us to be able to go out and find a pure history curriculum or a pure, our AP classes have been a problem, as we've found. There's a lot of things that creep into the curriculum that we don't have any necessary control over, but we try our best to try and control all of that as much as we can, and that's what we've been doing for many years now. And as you can see, with the amount of curriculum and the amount of things that get presented to us, it's tough to keep up on it, but we're doing our best, and we will continue to do our best to continue to make sure that all of that happens. So, Mr. Paul?
I definitely don't disagree with your comments, but I think in my opinion, there are a couple of things we need to firm up and we need to set some guidelines by. It is challenging for us. Most of us spent quite a lot of time in going through all of the material. As I specifically pointed out at the tail end of my update, the last meeting when we did approve this, I'm the one that actually brought up and to everyone's attention the loveisrespect.org website. Full disclosure at the time, I'd mentioned that I had not had the opportunity to go through it all, and I also mentioned my initial concern just by accessing the site that there was this escape hatch, if you will, that would in effect hide or give the kids the opportunity. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I blanket accusing teachers by any means that they would do that sort of thing to open it up and go through it in class, but there are a couple of things that understanding that they're going to go through this that I feel are important. I'd like to bring a couple of motions forward and let this board make the determination on them. So first thing, motion to prevent the usage of the website loveisrespect.org in all Kennedy Middle School social and emotional learning classes. The website shall be added to the district's internet filtering or blocked list.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Lowe.
I just can't agree with going this route. I looked at the Love is Respect website at work because my work internet access does block a number of websites, and I was surprised that it wasn't blocked. And I mentioned that I did this at work, and a friend of mine was surprised that I did it at work because he felt that I could possibly be fired for looking at this website. So I will, while I would like to restrict the use of these sort of things. Tracy got a motion in before me, so I'm not making a motion, but if I did make a motion, I would just move to ban the use of SEL in the middle school and suggest that staff look for a different program or develop their own if they feel we need this type of material in the school. So if you'll take my motion as a friendly amendment, I'll make the motion and go from there.
I just want to clarify, so SEL just stands for social emotional learning. It's the second step program that you're talking about specifically, correct?
In my case?
Everyone.
Correct. That's what we should be talking about.
Yeah, so if I were making a motion, I would ban the use of SEL and second stop. I just don't like having these things hanging out there that we have to review possibly each year to keep out of the classroom. You know, it's just not right. And what'll happen is if we approve it tonight, what'll happen is if any of us are on the board 5 years from now, we'll be told, well, the board approved it. So, you know, that's what happened with CRT in the one class of ours that we have control of where CRT is covered. Well, you approved it 5 years ago. Well, if you think about it, some of us have been in over 200 board meetings, you know, in the last 9 years. How would I remember that one night 5 years ago when that happened? So my preference would be is we don't need to deal with things like love is respect. We should ban it this evening and look for a different program altogether.
I'll take it.
What was it?
I'll accept a friendly motion, or friendly amendment, excuse me.
So are you saying, though, that we would look for a new curriculum, or are you saying we're going to let the teachers figure it out? Because we can't let them figure it out.
Well, I think we have a First of all, we have a number of parents here this evening that expressed the fact that they don't like this curriculum, or whatever you want to call it, SEL, Second Step, getting in between them and their students. And while I don't have any students in the district anymore, if I did, I wouldn't want my students doing this curriculum or looking at Love is Respect, for example. So where I'm going with that is I think we should ban it this evening, rescind the approval that we made 2 weeks ago, and look for something else. You know, if we really need a program that teaches non-bullying and respect for others, I'm okay with that. However, understand that most parents in this district have taught their students how to act and react towards other students. Most have. And there is a handful of students that might need help. And in a way, this really comes under the student's counselor and the student that has issues. It's not necessarily something that we need to teach to all students.
Having gone through everything in this 6th, 7th, 8th grade program, I'll stand by some of the material. There's material in here that is applicable to our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Goal setting, you know, having a discussion about bullying and harassment, those type of things. There's a level here that I believe can be, should be during one of these, shortened sessions. So I'm comfortable with it. We can use, I'll be honest, I screenshotted everything out there because of the fact that a year from now, I wanted to make sure nothing's changed, or at least nothing significantly changed. So I have screenshots of every slide out there.
Thank you. Nice work.
It's not. And I did share concerns with specifically the 7th grade, recognizing bullying and harassment, where there's some touchy subjects, some things we absolutely need, and that was going to be the second topic, formalizing notifications out to parents regarding all this, because while some of these discussions are worthwhile having, and certainly people can disagree with me on that, there's also the aspect to make aware what those topics are so that parents can be more active, can have that discussion. I know it's tough. I've got a 13-year-old, he likes hanging out in his room. That's his thing right now. So I'm experiencing 8th grade right now. So to your point, I take the amendment. I don't recall if there was a second or not, but.
Amanda, will you keep your second?
Yes, as long as we move forward to continue to help our children learn goal setting and talk about bullying and things, because it happens as adults. It doesn't go away.
So the way I see this, if we ban it, we will consider doing something else, SEL and Second Step.
No. I don't know. I don't know if I'd use the term ban. We'll pivot to something else.
Right, right.
We're not going to use the SEL program based on Second Step is what the motion on the table right now.
So,
and I would not be upset by that at all, knowing the connections that we have with Second Step. I'm thinking that we have teachers that are plenty talented that could come up with a program on their own to be able to do the social emotional learning in a more age-appropriate, more engaging way with our students. I think we have some incredibly talented teachers out there that can definitely get this done, so I'm not worried about that, and they can bring something back to us that would be much more effective for our students without all the baggage included. Mr. Barney.
I agree with rescinding it. I also agree with your comments from earlier that there are curriculum makers that are trying to sneak in critical race theory into certain things, and this could certainly be one of those situations. So us pulling it back and maybe finding an alternate curriculum that doesn't have some of those things in it is probably to our benefit.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Lowe.
I'd like to say also, we've got a lot of parents here tonight, and parents are always willing to help out with advice. I think parents might be able to find something out there also as a suggestion for us. So you're part of the team. You know, if you can find anything that is you're amicable to, I think the whole board would appreciate it.
Sorry, I have two other things, sorry. I'm taking my school board hat off, and I would suggest as a parent of a 13, an 11, and a 9-year-old that we ask whoever would be working on this to lend an ear or tip our hats towards trying to incorporate parental involvement. As I said, I have a 13-year-old boy who likes hanging out in his room, and sometimes having conversations with him in general, much less regarding some of these topics, is difficult. And so there's been talk about being visionaries and all this other stuff, right? Here's our chance to do something a little bit different, get our parents involved, and maybe even give them some tools to have those conversations at home. Just a suggestion. The other thing, I've got my school board hat back on now. I'm disappointed that this website wasn't just simply brought to our attention right off the bat. It's my understanding that there was a team that reviewed this curriculum. And I'm a new guy. I understand this. I'm only 4 months in. However, I had a level of expectation that questionable or possibly controversial material, certainly outside websites being brought in, should be highlighted during this. If it takes, okay, we spend all this time, fine, whatever, looking at this. That's water under the bridge. But it would have saved all of us some degree of time while we were reviewing this. And so just wanted to put that out there. You know, I understand it's a lot of stuff to go through, but it's also one of those things where I think the process, the transparency, the accountability piece, that's where that comes into play with just highlight, hey, just so you know, this piece of this particular area of this course takes us to this website. You might want to review that. And let us make the decision. I mean, we own, to some degree, the curriculum. We have to approve it. So therefore, any assistance that we can get in helping make these decisions is appreciated. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Tracy. I echo those comments because we can sit here for hours and read this information, but we're not the curriculum experts. So we need help with that. So I think creating some new kind of format or what have you that we can actually have a document to look at and all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed will help us along that path.
Mr. Barney.
Yeah, there's been, well, a motion and a friendly amendment and discussion about that motion. And let me just read something that's in a motion format, and if it matches, perhaps you can adopt it, just to make sure we cover it all. So motion to rescind the approval given by the board on August 9th, 2021 for the SEL program and further prohibit the use of the second step material, the SEL material at KMS. In addition, instruct the administration to locate an alternative curriculum to fit the gap left by this program's absence.
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business. Excuse me. Discussion and action to approve teacher resignations. Mr. Stelzen.
I'm going to hand A and B over to Mr. Nowak.
Thank you. Tonight we have 3 resignations to bring forward. Stephanie Weir recently submitted her letter of resignation effective August 17th, 2021. She was hired in August of 2015 in the Germantown School District as a kindergarten teacher at Amy Bell Elementary School. Jill Hippenbecker recently submitted her letter of resignation effective August 11th, 2021. She was hired as an aide in October of 2010 at Rockfield Elementary. Since August of 2015, she has worked primarily as a second grade teacher. Finally, Paula Jakes submitted her letter of resignation July 27th of 2021. Paula began as an aide in September in 2018 at Rockfield Elementary. She transitioned to teaching first grade in 2019. We ask that you approve all resignations as presented.
I'll entertain a motion.
Approve the resignations of Stephanie Ware, Jill Heppenbecker, Paula Jakes, thank you. And thank them for their service to our students, families, and the Germantown School District, and approve the posting to fill these vacancies.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item B, Mr. Nowak.
Thank you. We have, I believe it's 8 contracts to bring forward today. This is all part of sort of the push towards the beginning of the year. I'll go through them now. Kristen Oxner, kindergarten teacher at County Line Elementary. This is a regular contract at $54,000. Jessica Montijo, kindergarten teacher at County Line Elementary School, regular contract, $52,500. Chris Sapinski, second grade teacher, Rockfield Elementary, regular contract, $41,250. Labella Hegwood, special education teacher, MacArthur Elementary, regular contract, $52,250. Kayla Thurston, first grade teacher, Rockfield Elementary School, regular contract, $46,750. Kevin Plath, a mathematics teacher at Germantown High School. This is a limited term contract for 51 days at $15,708. Jessica Immick, special education teacher at MacArthur Elementary School, regular contract $60,500. And Catherine Sabilka, special education teacher at Germantown High School, regular contract $41,250. We ask that you approve these contracts as noted.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contracts as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Moving on to C, discussion and action to approve summer diagnostic contracts.
That's Mr. Lamb.
Thank you. Since the most recent meeting where we brought forward some names of staff members necessary to complete evaluations, we've had some additional special education evaluations that have needed to be completed. And so what we have in front of you are some additional staff members who have been part of evaluations during the summer for whom we've needed to provide additional summer contracts for their work. So we ask that you approve the additional staff members for the work they've provided.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the contracts as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item D, discussion and action to approve Germantown High School band overnight request. Mr. Stousland.
Yep, the band has asked to have the board approve a trip to Boston to perform and tour. Would be during our spring break in March 2022. The dates would be March 19th to the 23rd. There's no cost to the district. The band is raising the money and/or the students are paying part of it.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the overnight travel request for Germantown High School Band to travel to Boston, Massachusetts on March 19th, 2022 to March 23rd, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Discussion and action regarding mitigation and return to school plan. Mr. Stousland.
Yes, thank you. The one thing with our planning is we know we have to be flexible and adaptive to what, we don't know what's going to come this fall. This information is what I sent the board late last week. This is as of August 20th, just to get an idea of where we're at with numbers. If you look at the graphic, I know you can't read the numbers maybe, but that's from that's of April of 2020. And you can see the biggest spike was kind of late October, early November, and the three different colors are the 4 main zip codes coming into Germantown School District. And then there was a spike which correlates with what we saw last spring around April. And then you can see where we're at. We're just here above where we were in April with new cases per 100,000 in the last 7 days. So, and we'll continue to watch these numbers and look at these numbers as the year progresses. Some different benchmarking from area schools, and there's a lot of information in this graphic. If you have specific questions, please ask. But just looking at kind of the 3 different, what I call categories of mitigation: mask, quarantining, and then just other mitigation. So Slinger, for example, currently is having masks optional. Positive cases, and then they're quarantining positive cases and close contacts in the same home. And then all other close contacts are informed. 10 days quarantine for a positive case from onset of symptoms and or the positive result. As of when I gathered this information from Slinger, they had 18 students out of 3,400 that are choosing their virtual option. Hartford, choice for all students, staff, and visitors. Isolation for positive cases, same thing, 10 days for positive case from onset of symptoms. They do not provide a virtual option. West Bend is, they have been changing theirs a little bit, so I don't want to say this is exactly what they're doing. They're recommending masks and they're requiring them on the bus. Recommend does not mean mandatory. And also they have some, they're using some metrics that would determine masking. So if they hit a certain threshold of cases in their school, then they would require that. Again, that's not definite. This hasn't gone to their board. This is what I've learned from last week. Grafton right now is optional at all levels. However, they have a board meeting this evening as well. And so I really don't know the results. Grafton has a medical exemption only for virtual, and they have, as of last week, had 4 students out of 2,100 that are choosing virtual. Mequon is making, for 7-12, masks are recommended and required for staff and students grade 4K through 6 at certain levels, depending on the burden. And if you look all the way over to the right, if the local burden is above 100, then they require masks at the 4K through 6. 7-12 is masks recommended. And Port Washington is going with when they hit a certain threshold, all students and adults indoors and required on the bus. Same thing with their quarantining, 10 days from onset of symptoms or a positive test, whichever comes first, and using a percentage of positive cases within their school. So at 5% positive cases, it means one thing. At 10%, it means something else. And they move from recommended and should to must when they get certain thresholds. Any questions on the benchmark? And I did share previously, Shorewood, Whitefish Bay are all requiring masks at this time. Brown Deer as well. Health agency recommendations, again, mask, distancing, quarantining, metrics that they're using, busing and other, and the columns are CDC, DHS, and Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department. And you've heard it tonight as well, universal indoor masking for all students, staff, teachers, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccine status. That's the American Association of Pediatrics and CDC. DHS is saying the same thing. Washington Public Health is recommending it as one of 8 other mitigation strategies. And if you look at their chart that Washington County Health has, they have different color bands, kind of the 0 to 9, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 plus, and then recommending like 3 of the 5 mitigation strategies. If you get into the 5, it's 7 of the 8 mitigation strategies. All 3 are saying masks required in all transportation, partly because the U.S. Department of Transportation has a policy in place for masks on all public transportation, which includes school buses. However, if you read the requirement, they also cannot deny a student a ride on the bus, and regardless if their mask is on or not. So, but it is recommended. You're putting a lot of kids in a tight space. And then other recommendations, mitigation strategies, which we know from last year, ventilation, hand washing, screening, respiratory etiquette, and obviously stay home when sick to families. Any questions on this page?
Are our cleaning procedures continuing as they have in the past year?
Yep. In our filters, I know Don isn't here, but my understanding is the standard filter on HVAC systems is a 8, and the recommendation is a 13. Ours, with all the new updates, have been at 10s, and they were at 10s all of last year on 80% of our HVAC systems. The ones that aren't is because they're older systems. So to retrofit to something higher would be pretty costly, but that's our HVAC filters.
Any other questions?
I would just add one thing, actually, since we're talking about ventilation, because I hesitate to even bring this up because I'm sure I'll get fact-checked. However, I will say that I came across earlier today a Canadian study that I have not read in full. However, when I scanned through it, one of their findings was that 2 air changes per hour outperforms, in some cases, many of the masks. So I asked Don, what can ours do? And he said, we should be able to do 3 easily. So not that solves all of our problems, but it hopefully will put at least some comfort in the fact that our airflow is sufficient, possibly more than sufficient. But like I said, I scanned through it, and that was one of their findings that they noticed made a difference when it came to classrooms.
Mr. Stousson, have you changed the recommendation on masking other than what we came up with at the last meeting?
So
Are you making a recommendation?
I can. The quarantining, so I have 2 pages of quarantining information, so, or not, of mitigation information. The recommendation is that we go with the 10 days from onset of symptoms of a positive test, or symptoms for someone who is testing positive. The language allows for someone to return after a negative test after day 7, so we would go with that. And this is for staff and students if they were positive. We have, again, in our current policy that's been in place for many years, is that 30% absentee rate. However, we're going to notify families sooner than a 30%. That's pretty significant. If we're seeing that many cases, we're going to let people know, and if it's in a class or if it's in a grade level. The thing I would say is masks can remain a choice. I am concerned about the K-6 students, and I think the language needs to be stronger. Students should wear masks, possibly even opt out if they're not going to. And then obviously highly recommended for grades 7 through 12, especially when we move into the substantial and high-risk categories based on the mitigation assessment guide, which is the graphic that you can find on Washington County Health. You know, again, it's recommended students on school transportation wear a mask as well. And then, you know, we're asking our staff to use as much physical distancing as possible. However, if there's 25 kids in a class, the 6 feet is out the window, 4 feet is out the window, 3 feet possibly, just depending again on the size of the classroom and the number of kids in that room. Obviously, other mitigation strategies encourage hand washing, we would say respiratory etiquette, but really teaching kids wipe their nose on a Kleenex and sneeze into their elbows, all those good things. And again, just reminders that if a child is sick, we ask that families keep their children at home. And also, I think from the board's perspective that the assurance is that the board will continue to monitor the numbers and the data from our school specifically and make decisions accordingly. And we do have a virtual option for families through the Key eSchool, which is the platform that is used as the Florida Virtual Academy platform. And if families are interested in the virtual option, they just need to reach out to the district office. Or they can even reach out to their school, and the school will give them the proper information as to who to contact.
Okay, any comments?
I like the plan. Keeps it optional, certainly provides the strong recommendation in certain cases, which follows the CDC guidance. Not to say that I completely trust the CDC, but if they're the experts, let's go along and recommend what they're recommending.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, CDC is recommending masks on everybody, K-12, vaccinated or not. I'm just to be clear, that's what their CDC is
Right.
recommending.
So I'm saying we can recommend what the CDC recommends, but just not enforce what the CDC recommends. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're saying they should wear a mask, or on the previous page,
yep,
you recommend they wear a mask. Yep. They just have the option not to.
How will we be communicating to, please, how will we be communicating to the families what the level is and what our expectations are on a daily basis, weekly basis? Are we going to have some kind of a blast out to the district? How is that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, part of it depends on the number of cases. I mean, like last year, it was varied by school. You know, like at one point, middle school got hit pretty hard, and so there was communication there. High school was, you know, we actually closed high school for a couple days right before Thanksgiving because numbers were high. County Line had a couple grade levels that shut down, so it's going to be school specific, but you know, we'll communicate all of this information out tomorrow to families, but as far as cases, once we start to, if we see any spikes, we'll get information out.
Okay, any further questions?
Right.
Mr. Loth.
I'd like to keep it simple. We've got the motion we voted on back in June. Masks are optional. I'd like to keep it that way. I don't think we should move on anything this evening that's confusing. And what I mean by confusing is if we make a motion to do what the CDC recommends and then say we're not going to enforce wearing masks, I think that's extremely confusing. So just to reiterate what I think happened last year, it's a little bit surprising to me, but it seemed that transmission of COVID from student to student was very unlikely. Transmission from student to teacher was very unlikely. Transmission from teacher to teacher was possible and did occur, and transmission from parent to student occurred at home. And what I would like to do is thank our parents, because they did do a very good job of keeping students home and under quarantine when it was required of them. I don't believe any parents sent their students to school sick, especially with COVID, or probably not even with colds for that matter. So I'd like to congratulate all the parents for the great job that they did. But I'm okay with changing a little bit of wording. If you want to say for buses, masks recommended, I think that's fine. You know, it's a little bit different than masks optional, but masks recommended. And I think for, you know, the parents that want their students to wear masks, I think they should send their students to school with masks. I don't have an issue with that. But I think everyone here will be happy to hear me say I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's just not some fancy statement written in the Declaration of Independence. I believe it, and all of us in this facility should believe it. We did, like Diane said, we swore to uphold the Constitution, the federal Constitution first, and then the state. And I think it's unreasonable for us to demand students to wear masks. If masks work, you should send your student to school with a mask. If you believe they don't work, you should don't send your student to school with a mask. I don't know if my situation is important or not, but I caught COVID from a coworker at work who was wearing a mask. It's that simple. So can we get the details worked out, you know, just what we're moving on? So I think there's a little bit of text changing, possibly, Brett, from your write-up. Can we be clear on what that is? And I think the too much mention of the CDC is not very effective at this point. Here's the other part of it. We actually ran a school district all last school year. The CDC hasn't ran a single school district. We know what we're doing. I believe our staff knows when it's time to shut down a classroom, for example. And we, like Brett said, we have it in policy. The number is 30%. So I believe the policy was put in place for something more like the flu or some other virus, and certainly what we're dealing with right now is some other virus. You know, it's not something to be alarmed over. It's just another virus.
Mr. Powell. I would just recommend we add to the to-do list. I don't know if it's necessary to include something immediately, but based off of feedback that I know I received, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys also saw it as well, that when or if the vaccine is approved for those under the age of 12, that we visit the topic of when we take that into consideration as far as fully vaccinated and if we need to make any changes. Hear me out. First off, let me finish, and then you can yell. No, wait. It's the additional piece is the following or something similar to this statement, because one of the other things that was suggested by those folks who are pro-mask is that we have some sort of recommendation. Here's the language that I would suggest. and the board can take it up whenever they feel it likely or appropriate, that the board recognizes that healthcare decisions are very personal in nature. The board recommends and encourages families consult with their doctors to determine if the vaccine is right for your situation. So, a couple of to-dos, but, well, all I simply said was it's something to consider for our to-do list. If we take it up, we take it up. If we don't, I'm fine with what has been shared.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Stouslin, you had said that we will notify parents, obviously more than the 30%. Can you give me just a little more information? Like, is the teacher gonna say, hey guys, we have 3 kids out this week?
No, it'll be a letter from the
Okay.
principal or the nurse.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Brian?
Yeah.
Can we just go over what text? I think there's very little changing, but can we repeat it? Because I was looking for the email with that file in it, and I couldn't find it. And I'm actually not technologically challenged either. I just couldn't find it in the email system.
There's a couple of changes to the mitigation that was presented this evening. I'll entertain a motion if we want to accept the changes as presented.
But can we review what that is? We talked a lot about it. We talked a lot about a lot of
Include
things.
the changes from last meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's on the screen right there is, we're quarantining positive cases for 10 days from onset of symptoms or positive test, whichever one came
I
first.
think the only thing I see that's different from last time is the mask will remain a choice. The K-6 students should wear masks, and they are highly recommended for grades 7 through 12 when positive cases in school community are the substantial or high-risk category mitigation assessment guide, and it is recommended students on transportation wear a mask. That's the only
That's the
change.
biggest change, yep.
Okay, that's what we got.
Okay, so there's no point in that mitigation that says if the county or the CDC level goes to a certain level, masks are mandatory. That's not, I'm not seeing that. Right, okay, good. I'm good.
Anyway?
Do you want a motion on this?
I would.
I'll make a motion to accept the mitigation plan as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. I'll entertain another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:43. Thank you all for coming.
9:43.
I'm sorry, 9:44. Thank you all for coming and drive home safely.